Right.
Let's go to the next story. This next, talking about numbers that are shocking.
Yeah, this
is a political earthquake occurring right now.
Remarkable.
Not just on the
polling.
Republican side, but Newt versus Obama.
Paddles to the chest for everyone.
Okay, polling showing Newt Gingrich now unequivocally dominating the Republican presidential field in 3 of the 4 early primary states. The latest CNN Time opinion research poll shows Gingrich on top in Iowa, with 33% support among likely caucus goers. That's up 23 points from his October numbers. Mitt Romney at 20%, a 4-point drop from 2 months ago. Ron Paul behind Romney at 17%.
That's a story
still
right
within
there.
the margin of error. Yeah,
Yep.
those two.
He's gone up.
In South Carolina, Gingrich's lead over Romney increases to 23%.
That ain't nothing. That's huge.
The former this is my blood pressure. The former speaker is up 35 points in the state since the last poll in late October.
Well, you know, at least you can take some umbrage in the fact that Newt Gingrich does very poorly in swing states like Florida and Ohio. How's he doing in Florida?
No, not really. In Florida, Gingrich leads Romney by 23 points. The former speaker now has 48% support in the Sunshine State. That's a 39-point increase from the last poll.
39 points.
All right.
That's a lot of points.
You know, John Heilman, the biggest shock of the polls that came out yesterday were the polls that showed Newt Gingrich ahead of Barack Obama in swing states like Ohio.
Yes, well, this is this morning, just now, literally just a couple minutes ago. The Quinnipiac swing state poll just came out, and I got to say, these two different numbers. This Ohio number that has Gingrich ahead of Romney in a head-to-head matchup in Ohio by 40 some odd points, and then
it's 36 to 18%. In Ohio, Gingrich is doubling Romney.
55-28 in Ohio for Gingrich Romney.
55-28. I'm sorry.
So for all the Romney people who think, well, once we get to the big states that aren't in the South, that it'll all, we can stick around and fight Gingrich down the line. Ohio, that's a big number, but equally dramatic. And Joe, I know this really popped off the page for you, and it should pop off the page for everyone in Chicago. Newt Gingrich over Obama in Ohio in a head-to-head matchup, 43-42. That is a heart attack.
That is mind-bending.
I mean, against Newt Gingrich.
That is mind-bending. Now, and of course, Romney beats Obama in Ohio, too. That's not as much of a shock.
Right.
But a flamethrower like Newt Gingrich with the train wreck that has been his political career and his personal life, Mike Barnicle, this is clearly a statement from the American people that has less to do with Newt Gingrich than it does with the state of American politics.
Correct. It is not. I agree with you. It is not so much about Newt Gingrich as it is about the rest of the Republican field, about the discontent in this country with the direction of the country.
And with Obama. And Barack Obama is losing in Ohio in a Quinnipiac poll this morning to Newt Gingrich.
But I would suggest this, that once the coverage,
of course,
goes to content rather than horse race polls, Newt Gingrich is never going to be president of the United States.
Well, it seems like they want to overlook everything.
But add just the one thing here on this Ohio number in Quinnipiac. And again, if I'm the president's advisors, I would be concerned about this number. 53% of Ohio voters saying Barack Obama does not deserve re-election. 53-42 on the question of does the president not deserve re-election.
And
independent of the Gingrich race. That's, again, 53%. No, we do not want to reelect this guy in Ohio. That is
53% in Ohio. And by the way, a majority of Ohio voters clearly say, Willie, that Barack Obama would not do as good of a job on the economy as Newt Gingrich. I mean, Obama right now, they can run, they ran more negative 30-second ads 4 years ago than anybody in the history of American politics. It's not going to work this year. They have got to figure out a way to talk about paddles, to put the paddles to this economy.
And as John said, these are not states that they can chalk up to, well, it's a southern state, that's Gingrich. That's Ohio. That's a state, the Midwestern swing state. I do wonder, though, Heilman, maybe you can answer this. Yeah. How much of this is timing for Gingrich in terms of how he's doing against Romney? Republicans tried to fall in love with Mitt Romney. It didn't happen, and Newt Gingrich was the guy sitting there at the dance.
A lot of it. It's this more than anything. We talk about all the factors that matter in presidential politics. Momentum is everything, and especially in this race, where the field has never settled, to suddenly get this burst at this moment, it just couldn't have happened better at a better time for Newt Gingrich. And you think back to June when he was imploding.
Laughing stock.
Turns out he imploded at the right time because it gave him enough time to get a second breath.
All right, I just have one more story.
Yeah.
Which actually dovetails with something we're going to do a little later on about people that the Republicans are pushing out that happen to be women. But she's moved on now to the closely watched Senate elections of 2012, a new poll finding Harvard law professor Elizabeth Warren leading incumbent Scott Brown in a head-to-head matchup. The UMass Lowell poll finds 49% of registered Massachusetts voters would either vote for or are leaning towards voting for Warren, while only 42% say the same for Scott Brown. The poll also finds that attack ads have hurt the favorability of both candidates among likely voters. It's an interesting race. What do you think's going on?
Yeah, Mike Barnacle, it is a fascinating race. We're still early in the process, but Scott Brown's got a tough fight on his hands.
Elizabeth Warren is a very, very strong candidate in Massachusetts, made for Massachusetts. She has a message. She's articulate. She's confident. And Barack Obama is going to be on the top of the ticket in that state. He will carry that state. It's not Ohio. Right. She's going to be a very, very strong candidate.
This poll was taken this past week, the same week that Massachusetts voters saw the Republican Party elevate Newt Gingrich to the top of the top of possibly the Republican ticket. That obviously, and this is the story that Republicans need to start looking at. Yeah. There's no doubt that has hurt Scott Brown in this poll.
Oh yeah.
It'll hurt Republican candidates in Wisconsin, in Minnesota, in Michigan, in Illinois, in Pennsylvania, in New Mexico, in Arizona, in swing states across America. Having Newt Gingrich at the top of the ticket would be devastating. And I suggest that Massachusetts poll was impacted by the chaos in the Republican presidential race.
Joe, to me, and I suspect to you, John, that is one of the more interesting dynamics of this presidential season, in that the entire Republican field provides a drag on local candidates in so many states. Yeah. In so many states, people look at the entire Republican field of running for president and say, oh my goodness, what's happened to that party? And go the other way.
So, John Howland, why were you laughing?
Well, I was just laughing at that. Mika, you made the point, the correct point, that you said that attack ads have already hurt both of these candidates. And I'm like looking at my calendar here, and it's December, and there's the attack ads have already taken a toll on both candidates. She's not even the Democratic nominee yet, and we're seeing their favorability ratings getting hit this far out. It's kind of insane. There's going to be blood all over. The entire state of Massachusetts is going to be drenched in blood.
Primaries in September.
I know, the primaries in September. It's just crazy. But I'll tell you, to your point, Joe, I was on TV here yesterday with Susan Molinari, and I just asked her, I said, what would you do if you were running for Congress again and Newt Gingrich is the head of the ticket? She was like, I'd put a gun in my mouth. I mean, she didn't literally say that, but it was like, it'd be death for me, a moderate female Republican trying to win in a non-deep red district. You'd be doomed. He'd be 10-point anvil around your neck.
Easily in the Northeast, in the Midwest, in the Pacific West, Newt easily costs 10-15 percentage points. How do I know this? I know this because I campaigned in '98 for a lot of Republicans. They're a group of conservatives. Steve Largent, myself, Lindsey Graham. Back when Lindsey was a conservative, we went across America and we campaigned for moderates. Just basically put our arms around them and say, they're okay. These guys are okay. We need them. Send them back. And Newt Gingrich, everywhere we went. Oh, you know what? We voted for Rick White in Washington, but now he's just a Gingrich Republican, which wasn't the truth. We voted for, and I could name somebody in Illinois, he's just a Gingrich Republican. I'm telling you, I've seen it firsthand. We conservatives in the Republican Congress saw it firsthand. Newt Gingrich's political death for candidates down ballot.
And that leads to what we've all been hearing about Washington, is that the establishment is going to Mitt Romney and saying, get your act together. We have to stop Newt Gingrich for the sake of the party.
What we led this segment with, Governor Chris Christie, you see him, and you think brokered convention.
The problem is the Republican establishment ain't what it used to be.
Right.
As with all establishments, they ain't what they used to be.
Yeah, and by the way, just so people understand at home, this is not personal toward Newt Gingrich and the Republican establishment. If Newt Gingrich helped candidates in Washington State, Illinois, Massachusetts, they would be writing $1 million checks to him.
And he'd be ahead by 80 points.
And he'd be ahead by 80 points.
Instead of 40 points.
The Republican Party has a historic opportunity, as John Heilemann said last night at the 92nd Street Y, to sweep the White House, to sweep the Senate, to sweep the House, to destroy Barack Obama politically. You look at these numbers. But with Newt Gingrich, it's just not going to happen, and Republicans know it.
I don't understand it. Coming up, we're going to bring in Illinois Governor Pat Quinn for his reaction to the Blagojevich sentencing. Also, his
can we ask him if when you get inaugurated, you immediately are given a criminal lawyer by the state of Illinois?
You know what?
It seems like a fair question.
It's a legit question.
You got to have one on retainer.
They Mirandize you.
They Mirandize you. Yeah, the oath.
Part of the oath.
Right to remain silent.
Historian Neil Ferguson is coming up. Look at his picture. Look, it's like a model.
Are you not going to read me my rights? I just got sworn in as Illinois governor.
It's part of the oth.
Oh my!
It's like you put your hand on you put one hand on the Bible and put one hand on the fingerprint blotter.
Fingerprint him and put an ankle bracelet on him.
Portrait of the governor.
One hand on the Bible, one hand on the ink blotter, the fingerprint blotter at the same time. It is to him simultaneously.
Also, Jack Abramoff will be here on set. Up next, though, look at these guys.
Who?
Neil looks like he posed.